All right. Hey, everybody. This is Matt from ClickBid. And in this tutorial, I want to talk about the API documentation that we've just rolled out. We've improved it and we have added a few extra endpoints. So, what I want to do is go through a quick tutorial on how to use it. Now, with the API, we assume that you have some programming knowledge and that you have some experience using APIs. As a support, we don't actually offer any external support services to developers. Certainly, you're able to ask your questions, but our account management team is not trained in software development, nor are they trained in API development. So I'm going to do my best here to give you the information you need to be effective with our specific endpoints. But I will also assume that you have some experience with how to read and understand APIs. All right, let's dig in. You're going to find what you're looking for in the admin under the API settings. Now, your user account will have to have access to it. This page is broken down into two parts. The top part lists all of the API tokens that you've generated, and the bottom part lists the logs. You can see what packets were sent, what packets were received, if there were any errors, and so on, just as a way to kind of make sure everything's functioning the way you would like it to. To create a token, you have two types of options. You can create an org token or you can create an event token. Typically, you're going to create an event token. An organization token would allow you to do a few extra endpoints like looking for a keyword, creating a new event, and so on. For now, I'm going to choose the create token button and I'm going to choose the event. I'm going to choose the 4939, let it snow. I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to call it 4939 testing and update. Now it's going to give me another pop-up that says it was complete, and I need to copy this token, put it into a password manager. This is the only time you're ever going to see this token. If you forget it or lose it, you're going to have to regenerate a new one and delete the old one. So let's just copy it for now. But again, I would put this in a password manager so it's safe. I wouldn't put it in a text document or in your code, hard-coded or any of that kind of stuff. You can also delete any of the API tokens if you want to purge the system of any access. You can do that as well. Just select the token and press delete. Now, to take a look at our documentation, just click on API Docs. All right, it's going to open a new tab, and in that tab is going to be our API documentation. It's written right alongside the actual code base. That way you can do things like testing the API and so on. On the left-hand side, you're going to see the menu system, and the bulk of the page is going to be the documentation and the information. Our menuing is broken down into general information, things like authentication. We use a bearer token, which is what you generated just a second ago. You can have query parameters, for instance, page, how many per page, and so on. There is a rate limiting. If you hit the limit, you're going to see a response with a 429 response code. And the response format will be always in the form of data and information. If it is a collection, it'll give you how much was in that returned data packet, but it'll all be in a JSON format. Now we get into the actual endpoints themselves. Let's take a quick look at a couple and we'll test them out. Let's go to bidder, list bidders. All right, before I talk about all of this content here, I'm just going to move over and press the test request. And we get a little pop-up modal here, gives us the test endpoint that we're going to do. It's using the get method, and we need to add an auth type. Let's choose the required HTTP. I'm going to paste in my token. So there we go. It's pasted in. It also is required that I add the event ID. Oh, well, how do I get the event ID? Well, you may have seen it when I was creating a new token. The other option is when you're logged in on the right-hand side, whether you're in an event or whether you're in the admin or the organization admin, just choose this little person icon and it'll drop down and it'll say, let it snow, event ID 4939. Okay, so that's my event ID, 4939. If I needed to get the org ID, I would need to have access to the account tab, but I can click on that and I can scroll down and it'll say org ID 10, organization, current license, full suite. So you can open up a chat and we can help you find that. All right, let's go back. It was 4939, right? That was right. 4939. If I were to put in one of the other tokens, 10, and hit send, it would give me an insufficient access response. And the response would be a 401 unauthorized, which is accurate. But if I do a 4939, I should get a response. Now, as it said before, It gave me a collection, so the data collection, and then the information related to it. So it gave me the path that it called, how many per page, how many there were, and a timestamp. This is all great information to have when you're breaking this data down. You can use this as a last time we called this, and you could use it to get updated information since this time. All right. Now, how do I get more information? This is great if I want every single bidder in the account. Notice here that I have a bidder called Matthew Testing. I only have one bidder. But now what if I want to get, well, I don't see there's any phone numbers or emails or anything like that. So the way our API works is it actually joins data into the API call. So you have these parameters here with, if I click on the info icon here, I can choose any of these available options: bids, bidder.bids, or bids.bidder, bids.item, checkouts, and all this. Well, I see here I have emails and phones. So I'm just going to choose with emails, comma, phones. That's it. And I need to plural emails, comma, phones. Now, if I just did phone, that means I should get my emails, but I don't have any phones. So nothing came back in my test. So that's because I didn't pluralize it. All right, cool. So let's take a look. Now I have phones. So because there is a one-to-many relationship between a bidder and emails and a bidder and phones, you may get more than one phone or more than one email. And if I wanted to include bids and items, let's see what we have here. Bids item. So I want to do bids.item. Then what it will do is it will give me an array. Looks like I don't have any bids because I can see here it's blank. But let's go back to the admin. Now, this is how I would be testing. Like, it's blank. I better do something here. So let's go back to my events tab. And I'm going to jump into Butler. And I'm going to type in, I think it was Matt. Yep, Matthew Testing. I don't need to worry about the card on file. Let's do donation. And let's enter $100. Add bid. Okay, good. So I added a bid. Now, if I go back to the documentation, hit send again, I will get data. So in this case, I got the bid information. It gave me the ID, bidder ID, event ID. Well, item ID doesn't really help me that much. I don't know what that is. But if I include bids.item, it will give me the item array inside of the bid. So for every bid that I have, I will get an array or a result of an item. Now, it is a one-to-one. Every bid has a single item. Now, obviously, I'm getting a lot of data here. This is the donation, that's the item number, but this is all information that I would want if I were building maybe a report or a dashboard. I could get that information. You can also sort your responses if you want to. Comma-separated list of fields to sort by, prefix with a dash for a descending order, so you can do that. And then there's a filter. So let's say I want to filter. I'm going to go ahead back into Butler, and I'm going to create a bidder called, let's leave it blank, and we're going to call them don't show bidder. Okay. And now I'm just going to complete it. And I guess I need to add a phone. Sorry about that. Let's do 616-333. That should do it. There we go. Okay, good. If I run this again, I'm getting all bidders. Let's close this. You can use these chevrons to close and condense your data. But notice here I have, in my data, I have a Matthew Testing and a don't show bidder. So I want to hide this don't show bidder in my response. I want to filter only on first name or last name. So we go to filter. I want to type in, and I believe, let's do first underscore name. It's snake case, I guess is what we call it. And then EQ, so first name equal Matthew. And let's see what we got. You'll know it worked. Let's close all of these. And there you go. So I was able to filter this query based on first name. I could filter, so in this documentation, this got me for a few, minutes when I tried this before, is you have, first name, EQ, you'll notice in this info, you can do things like EQ, not equal to, less than or equal, greater than or equal, and like. Those are your options. Those are your queries. Now, if you've ever written SQL, this will make a lot of sense, especially the like. And you'll notice you have a couple options. I'm going to, get rid of these two. We just fed a couple in there. You could, if you wanted, again, notice how it showed you the ability to filter on nested data. So if you just want to find a person by their email, you could do bidder.email and it would give you the ability to filter on that. All right. Let's close that down and let's do bid. One of these things that you can actually do now is place a bid. So I have a donation item. Now there are some rules that apply to the API that don't apply to the ClickBid admin. So the closing time is actually 2/28/2026. The status is invisible. You'll notice in the documentation, you have to place the bid on this donation item. The item has to be open. So let's go ahead and give it a shot. All right, so I'm going to place a bid. I need to do a couple things first, because if I go to the test request, what does it want? It wants an event, an item, and then I have to pass in some data. I need to pass in a bidder ID, a bid amount, max amount, and so on. I know the event ID is 10, but I don't know what the item ID, and I don't know what the bid amount is, or I don't know what the bidder ID, and I don't know what the item ID. Well, how am I going to figure that out? Well, first you're going to have to close that, list bidders, and I'll just delete that one, and it should give me all of my bidders here. Here we go. So I'm going to place a bid for don't show bidder. I need to get their ID. So I need to know their ID is 101-356-3516. I'm going to copy that, close it, go back to my place bid. And then I'm going to go back to my bidder ID and paste that in. Okay, so I got one piece of information. How much do I want to, let's say they want to give $100. Now, max amount, notes, and notify, we can just get rid of those and get rid of that trailing comma. Notice if I have a typo, it's going to give me the underline. That's actually pretty cool because it tells you have a typo mistake. So I'm going to get rid of that, put in bid amount. Now I still need to get the item ID. Oh, okay, shoot. Let's go to item, list items, test request, and the event ID is 10. Let's list them. Insufficient access. Oh, 4939. You can tell which event I have been testing on for the last 3 weeks. I used the wrong event ID. Even though it's a valid event ID for my org, this token is only allowed access to this event ID. So it's kind of like a double authentication. Now I want to add I only have one item in my account. This is good news. So my donation ID 549690. So I'm going to copy it. Now something I've done in my testing is I have a simple or a Sublime text editor that I have open, and I'll just, copy and paste these things in here when I'm testing. So that way I don't have to rely on my clipboard, because if I go back to place bid, hopefully, yeah, good. It's still, it does keep it in there once it's put in, it caches it. So my event ID now is the right item ID. The bidder ID is right. And the bid amount, because it's a donation item type, it doesn't matter what dollar amount I put in there. And I hit send and it says, uh-oh, resource not found. Again, 4939. When I watch tutorials online, I see the blogger or the podcaster put in the wrong data, and then I'm like, he's going to figure it out in a second. And that's probably what you guys were doing. So I put the right in there, and it does say resource. When it says resource not found, it's a problem with your up here at the top part. Now I got another message. It's 42. Item is not open for bidding. The closing time is in the future, but now I just need to go to active. So this is kind of a gatekeeping or a guardrail that we're putting on our API so that it's not, out of control. So you do want to make sure that your items are open and available for bids. So let's go ahead and hit send. Now, when it works, it's going to return data. It's going to give me the ID that it created, the bidder ID, the item ID, all of the data that's required inside of that bid table, that bid packet. So now I can take this return and I can do something with it however I want. All right, delete, put, patch, same thing. Now you just go into your test request and add it in there. What I will say, just as a few wrap-up comments to the API, you'll notice ticketed guests maybe. You'll see an awful lot of endpoints here where it says list guest and list guest, and you're thinking, is this a mistake? The list guest of the second option is going to want an event ID, a ticket form, and a registration ID. This is so that the API is currently backwards compatible. We did not reversion this because our current documentation was kind of just an entry-level Kickstarter kind of thing. And now we're trying to build a platform, a documentation that we can now version. So in order to avoid having to create a version 5, what we did was we kept a couple of the legacy endpoints. But when you're actually looking for guests, it really only does require the event ID and the ticket form that you're calling. You could get a specific guest, or if you wanted to get guests from a ticket sale, you could do that as well. So, and again, some of these API endpoints, you're going to what I call daisy chain. You can list first, you want to get your ticket forms to get the form ID. Then you go into ticketed guests to get the registered guests. You can do a where or a filter on registration ID to get limited guests and so on. And then you can also get registrations or ticket sales from this ticket form if you know the ticket form ID. So again, you're going to assemble a lot of these endpoints together to get and manipulate the data. All right. Well, hopefully this is helpful. If you have any questions, please let us know. But like I said, our responses, unfortunately, we don't have a lot of support for the API. There's just so many things you can do with our API that it would be almost impossible for our support team to be up to date on every possible mutation. But certainly, if you let us know, maybe we can make changes, or if you have recommendations, always happy to help. Thanks a lot.